One in the agricultural circles in Windsor, West Hants for many years, and then came the late 70s and the early 80s. Pumpkins, as we've all come to know, have been grown in North America for around 5,000 years, they say, and they're low in calories and fat and sodium and high in fiber. They are indeed low in calories. Great sources of vitamin A and B, as well as potassium, protein, and iron. In the 1500s, Mr. Speaker, shortly after the French explorer Jacques Cartier explored the St. Lawrence region in North America, he reported finding something he named gross melons. That name was translated into English as pumpkins, and today we know that as pumpkins, of course. In saying this, Mr. Speaker, I have my doubts if Mr. Cartier, however, ever thought there would be a day when he'd see a single pumpkin that would weigh in at over 1,600 pounds. This is all because, of course, of Howard Dill and the Atlantic Giant pumpkin seeds. And in 2007, using Dill's Atlantic Giant seed, Mr. Joe Jutras broke a new historic world record with one weighing 1,689 pounds. Mr. Don Young from Iowa placing second in the world with one at 1,662 pounds. And it was back in 1980 when the world record for a pumpkin was 460 pounds. But Howie Dill changed that and grew one close to 500 pounds. And Mr. Speaker, pumpkins have never stopped growing. I want to revert back to a quote from a citation presented to Howie a few years ago by the Nova Scotia Agricultural College. The citation, making Howie an honorary associate, stated, despite having no formal education in genetics, Howard Dill is responsible for the growth and the development of a variety of pumpkin known as Dill's Atlantic Giant. The citation concluded saying, Mr. Dill is a distinguished Nova Scotian and has brought worldwide attention to Nova Scotia. When you reference worldwide attention, you only have to look at the features done on Mr. Dill in National Geographic Magazine, Country Living, Canada AM, Harold Smith Maclean's, and so on. The list is practically endless. Mr. Dill was a World Pumpkin Confederation champion 4 times and is listed in the Guinness Book of World Records. In his book, Al Kingsbury stated, the Pumpkin King, Al Kingsbury stated, the Atlantic Giant is being grown each year by an estimated 10,000 serious growers and competitors, and perhaps millions of home gardeners. Howard Dill had trademarks for his Atlantic Giant pumpkin seeds in Canada, the United States, United Kingdom, Austria, and many, many countries around the world, Mr. Speaker, including Portugal and Spain. In their Canada Day edition on July 1st, 2006, the Vancouver Sun listed 139 reasons to love this country of ours. Number 56 on the list was giant pumpkins, saying Howard Dill had a great idea, an idea that grew to 1,446 pounds. An article in the Friday, May 11, 2007 edition of the Dallas Morning News discussed in detail the subject of growing pumpkins. And whose seeds and abilities were mentioned? None other than Howard Dill's Atlantic Giant seeds from Nova Scotia. An enormous amount of people visited the Dill farm on College Road every year, and Howie's always had time for each and every one, including those students that I mentioned earlier today. They had a great time going there, and Howard certainly loved to see many young people come as well as the old. It didn't matter whether it was hockey great Brad Park, who visited Howie and autographed a few hats last September, or former Canadian heavyweight boxing champion George Chavala, or Hockey Night in Canada's Ron McLean and Don Cherry, who spent some time there. I think it was 2002. CBC did the Hockey Day in Canada, live from the Long Pond and from the Windsor area. And that was a great experience as well. So we can't forget, of course, about Martha Stewart, all the excitement around that. We thought she was going to come to Windsor and row in the pumpkin in the great challenge in the fall. Martha never made it, apparently due to some grounded heavy rain problems in the U.S., so perhaps another day she'll be back to do just that. She has since, I believe, sent someone out to row and represent her. And they all came, and they all saw. Mr. Speaker, I can't finish tonight without talking about Howie's great love of the game of hockey and his Boston Bruins. And it's too bad the member for Timberley Prospect wasn't here. I think he's a Bruins fan. So Howie, besides being a Pumpkin King, was also considered to be one of Windsor's best known hockey historians. And he's got a lot of stuff there. Howie Dill's hockey collection, simply outstanding, and he had collections dating back to the New York Americans hockey team and a program they had for their games back in the early 1930s. Whether it was a player's autograph or any kind of hockey memorabilia, Howie Dill had it. The Boston Globe's #1 hockey features writer Kevin Paul Dupont did an incredible story on Howie, his love of the game, and the Bruins back in 1993, and it continued on. The New England Sports Network did a story on Howard as late as last fall, and it didn't matter if you wanted to talk about Eddie Shore, Bobby Orr, Johnny Busick, or Harry Sendon. Howard always had a minute for his Bruins. And speaking of the Bruins, Howie was exceptionally proud of all of his grandchildren, but took immense joy in hearing about grandson Michael Dill, who is rapidly garnering considerable attention as a hockey player. And Mr. Speaker, this young man is 9 years old. Just over 24 hours ago, the town of Windsor, the province of Nova Scotia, and this great country lost an agricultural icon and a renowned hockey historian. Mr. Speaker, I want to extend my sympathies to Howard's wife Hilda, his children Danny and Andrew, Maureen and Diana. Nova Scotia has lost a farming icon and a real gentleman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Chair now recognizes the honourable member from Pictou-East.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's both a pleasure and an honor for me to stand in this House tonight and pay tribute to Howard Dill. There is no debate here in late debate tonight because we are involved in a united tribute, a salute to Howard Dill, the Pumpkin King. Now, some members of this House may not be aware that for 16 years, my family and I lived in Hants County. And I would like to relate to this House the bonds that developed between the Dill family and the McKinnon family. And the number of times I cannot count that my wife and I sat at the table with Howard and Hilda and had a cup of tea and listened with great interest to this man's love of life, his love of farming, and his great love for the giant pumpkins. Now, during those years, I should say that two of our children, Mary Kay and I, two of our three children, actually were involved in dating two of Howard and Hilda's children way back years ago in their teenage years. And the bond that existed was one that was very great between the families. And we continue to have, over the years, exchanged cards at Christmas and kept in touch. And it was a great shock to be notified by the family that Howard was fighting cancer, and the prospects were not good. And just as one of the reflections that I have is that our son Kent worked on the Dill farm and was involved working on the farm during pumpkin season. And there was more than one time that Howard Dill wrote excuses to the teachers that Kent was involved in delivering pumpkins to Moncton, that he had accompanied Howard to CBC to appear on a TV program, or for maybe it was a radio interview and so on. But there were so many times that the Dill family and the McKinnon family interacted, and I'm very proud to have had that period of time to have known Howard Dill on a very personal basis. And you know, one of the things that I've always admired Howard Dill for was the fact that he was getting into the World Book of Records, the Guinness World Book of Records, and he was willing to share his secrets. He was willing to distribute his seeds to others that had longer growing seasons, that lived in a more palatable climate than we have in our northern area and so on. But it was that sharing of the seeds, the sharing of his knowledge, and the sharing of his love for those giant pumpkins that I will always remember. And certainly this house and my family extend condolences to Howard's wife Hilda, and to Maureen and Danny and Diana, and to Andrew Dill at this time. And I remember when the gourds that he was growing first broke the 500-pound record, and the excitement that all of us had back in those days. But it's really interesting that just a few moments ago I went out and I ran off the Dill Atlantic Giant, world's largest pumpkin variety, the newsletter that Howard and Danny put out, and it's really interesting. As the member for Hants West mentioned, here is Howard congratulating Joe Jutras of Rhode Island on a new historic world record at 1,689 pounds, and also big kudos to Don Young of Iowa for growing the second heaviest pumpkin in 2007 at 1,662 pounds, and Dan and Jason McKee of New York at 1,631.5 pounds. And that joy, that is the top of his webpage. And, you know, it was always congratulating others who, with the longer growing seasons, were achieving so much with the seed. And the Dill's Atlantic Giants were growing for 25 years. For 25 years, he has been making history with those pumpkin seeds. And it's really phenomenal that in the first page of his newsletter, he says that 10 pumpkins broke the previous historic record of 1,502 pounds. And what I really like about this first page is the fact that Howard Dill, in typical fashion, signed "Yours in Pumpkins, Howard Dill, Originator." And to me, that is the Howard Dill that all of us that became on an intimate basis with him, that was the Howard Dill that so many people loved and respected for so many things that he did. And certainly nobody, absolutely no one, could promote pumpkins like Howard Dill. Perhaps Danny is in there too. Danny has that finesse as well, and other members of the family. But to have pumpkins that you could actually cut out, get inside of, and get involved in a race on an annual basis, I believe, is something phenomenal in this province of Nova Scotia. And so many people around the world, movie stars and Hollywood, were just totally enthralled with Howard Dill and the pumpkins. Martha Stewart is only one of many, many who, in fact, over the years, got very excited about the Dill pumpkins, the Atlantic Giants. And, you know, he also promoted Windsor and area with the Long Pond situation and the first in Canada for hockey and so on. And he's brought so much attention to us in this province that we are very humbled, I believe, to have had the the pleasure of knowing such a giant. And it wasn't just the pumpkins that were, in fact, the giant. Howard Dill was a giant in Nova Scotia, Mr. Speaker. And with that, I think my time has about expired, but I really appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes the honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm pleased to join my colleagues in saying a few words about the life of Howard Dill. I probably can't add a lot new in terms of fact and things about his life, but I thought today, when the House started at 2 o'clock and the leaders all took time to pay tribute, and for all MLAs to stand on their feet for a moment of silence, said tremendously a huge volume about the life of Howard Dill and what he has meant to Windsor and what he has meant to the province, and how his name has gone around the world, and of course by extension his community and the things that he has dedicated part of his life to. You know, I don't think it was by accident that Howard fostered the development of extremely large pumpkins. In fact, I guess the story goes about his interest to excel and do well goes back to his childhood experiences in 4-H. And any of us who know about 4-H and what it brings out in young people, you know, Howard would be the poster person, I guess, to say, here's the kind of life that can be influenced by your time and years in 4-H. And for many of these, many of the people that are in 4-H, it does foster, I think, a way of life. And of course, being on the farm, he had every opportunity to exhibit all those good qualities that he had learned, both at the personal growth and also in terms of, in this case, the product of the pumpkin. So Howard really started early in that respect in terms of shaping an interest of his. So it was quite astounding in 1979, almost 20 years ago, that Howard's first huge pumpkin, weighing in at 438 pounds, at that time, you know, caught, that's now almost 30 years ago, sorry, caught the imagination of anybody growing anything. And with that, you know, he started something that many others in their backyards wanted to participate in. And of course, and growing up or living in the valley, you know, each year we started to hear from 79 on, how big would Howard Dill's pumpkin be this particular year? And we all need to perhaps be reminded and remind ourselves that you just don't grow a large pumpkin by putting a seed in the ground and just letting Mother Nature alone take care of it. This is literally a love affair. You have to have a passion for this. You have to have time to feed a pumpkin to grow this large. So this was a passion of Howard's, and as my colleague opposite has said, as he learned about the growing of pumpkins, and also some years when he knew we had one larger than the previous year, and just days before it was going to be weighed in, the pumpkin split. So he learned a lot about growing a pumpkin that would hold its shape and would be able to be lifted from the field for a weigh-in. But the marvelous thing, as my colleague opposite alluded to, was that Howard was willing to share whatever information he learned about the growing and the seeds. He passed on. So you know, winning the world championships was the beginning of patented the Atlantic giant seed. And currently, there are about 3,000 pounds of these seeds that are sold and distributed literally around the world. So he has started something that his family and the Howard Dill Enterprises will continue. It was in 2004 that he sort of thought perhaps, this is about the limit that we're going to be able to grow these pumpkins, when Al Eaton of Richmond, Ontario, set a record of 1,400 pounds with, again, a Howard Dill seed. So the one thing we need to be cognizant here, of course, is that that all of these champion pumpkins have their origins with Howard Dill. And that's why the term Pumpkin King, of course, became synonymous with him. So now, as we had read into the record today, a new record, 1,689 pounds. And that is a phenomenal gourd, to say the least. And, when I think Howard Dill will be the first one to be delighted that the barrier of 2,000 pounds, which I think at some point will be broken. This is the nature of genetics and adaptations and learning to fine-tune during a growing season. So Howard has brought enormous attention to Windsor and to the province, and I think it will continue to grow. It's a name that's going to be with us here in the province. And my own view and love of hockey, and having met Howard and talked hockey with him, I absolutely believe that the Long Pond story has not reached its final chapter. I think there will be still more that will be uncovered and discovered about what he deeply believed was Canada's beginnings of hockey as we know it today. So he has brought great positive attention to his community with two of these great loves of his life that he dedicated so much time to. And this year, when the Pumpkin Regatta comes around, there'll be lots of stories, I'm sure. As the member who represents the riding where Howard lived his life, Hants West, there'll be a lot of stories exchanged about Howard Dill, his contribution to agriculture, to really what I would call one of the founders of agritourism, when you think of the spin-offs from what he has given us here. And I think the Pumpkin Regatta will continue to grow. And I know today is a day to extend condolences to Hilda and the family, but it's also perhaps, I think we'll keep in mind that perhaps, I'm sure, Windsor and perhaps the province should also look at something named in Howard Dill's memory, because he has given tremendously with his dedication and passion for his two great loves, growing pumpkins and the world of hockey. And with that, I'll take my place, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I want to thank the honourable members this evening for taking part in this late debate, and saluting the tremendous life and contributions of our province's Pumpkin King, Mr. Howard Dill. The motion for adjournment has been made. The House stands adjourned until 3 p.m. tomorrow.